Correspondent Justin Michaels, he's with us now. Justin, a few surprising things. In addition to the FEMA, he also said that he's going to hold off aid to California. Is that what you heard as well? Until we get the voting taken care of, the voter ID taken care of, as well as releasing water resources.
Right. It's interesting, some of the things the president's saying. Let's start with FEMA. And I took down the quote that he said, they want to fundamentally reform FEMA or maybe get rid of it altogether. These are the first comments that he's ever made, or really anybody's ever made, about getting rid of FEMA. It'll be interesting to see. He said in the coming weeks he's going to have something. Then another reporter questioned him on the timeline, and he gave no indication on what that even means. So I hope that reporters and correspondents in that room continue to push him on the FEMA. That might be the biggest news of this day. It's one thing to have a president go to disaster zones. We see that oftentimes, you know, the moniker consoler-in-chief comes out oftentimes in these situations, going there to talk to folks. And I understand that he is going to be doing that after this meeting that he's having, to go out to Swannanoa and a few other communities to meet with folks who are still living through the aftermath of Helene. And then eventually the same thing going on in California later today and tonight. But the biggest news I think we're getting today is this whole FEMA thing. And I hope that reporters continue to question him on this, because one tried to get the question in about the timeline, and he didn't, either he didn't understand, or didn't hear her, or kind of sidestepped it to move on to a different topic. As far as California, Jackie, he brought up voter ID, and he brought up the water, like you mentioned. And I would hope, having all of us have been to these disaster zones, that that's not going to be, you know, a requirement of money being released to help people in Pacific Palisades and Altadena and so many other communities. But that's kind of what it sounded like. It
sounded like he was using that as kind of a bartering tool. Yeah. I want to ask a little bit more about the FEMA, too, because and one of the points that he did make, saying despite getting rid of FEMA, that even though the states, maybe local government, would be handling some of this, that they would still get some federal money. So I don't want people to panic about the loss of that potentially, at least in terms of financial aid need.
It sounds like the plan that he is very cursory outlining today, and I think we're going to have to learn more about this, especially before we have severe season coming up. We have another hurricane season coming in now, less than 6 months. We've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe where FEMA or some iteration of it is going to be required. So it sounded like he was insinuating that money would still come from the federal government and be funneled to the states for them to handle it, in addition to whatever aid they are bringing to the table, which states, of course, do. And it's very much aided by that FEMA money. So it's going to be really interesting to see the channel. And is FEMA still going to maybe distribute the money, a different form, a different kind of FEMA? Is FEMA going to go away altogether? Again, I read the quote, fundamentally reforming FEMA or maybe getting rid of it altogether. That's a direct quote from Donald Trump.
Yeah, so, I think really what it comes down to is clearly changing how that aid can get to these states, and at this point now just getting the details on how that is all going to end up working.
But it's interesting to look back at things like storms like Ian. Let's take the causeway that goes from basically Cape Coral area over to Sanibel Island. And that was supposed to take 3 to 5 years. And Governor DeSantis and the team down there got it done in a matter of weeks. So there are ways to cut through the red tape to get aid and get assistance to people, make things work. Is the president going to try to do that in coming disasters in North Carolina, in California? That's yet to be seen. So
but Florida has a lot of experience with disasters like that.
They do.
Many other states do not have that same type of experience. And you have to wonder, in addition to that, if we get rid of FEMA, where does the people power come from to make all of this happen?
Are they going to depend more on charities, whether they're religious-based or secular? Are there going to be private contractors? How are they going to manage it? There's going to have to be a major outlay of information and a new plan that I think we're getting a little bit of the inclination that there's going to be. When is that going to be put out to the American people? And does it have to go through congressional approval? Is it an executive order that he can sign and just abolish FEMA? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea how that works. So
details.
Right. The devil's in the details.
That's what we're going to be waiting on here in the coming days.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so later on today, he's going to California.
Yes.
Do we know what his itinerary is there, what he's going to do?
Lands there, goes to Pacific Palisades. The Weather Channel has spent a lot of time in Pacific Palisades and Altadena. Didn't say anything on the calendar about being in Altadena, but Pacific Palisades right there along the coast, very close to Santa Monica and Los Angeles International, making it very easy for them to get to, makes sense. And of course, Pacific Palisades, you know, our team has firsthand experience with that place. And I will tell you, over the last several days, a lot of people have been asking about going there and seeing it. And I will tell you, from this reporter's perspective, which is just a one-person view, it might be the worst destruction I personally have seen in my role with the Weather Channel over the last 9 years, because I mean, I've seen towns wiped away. We've all seen that. But the extent of this damage was extraordinary. And I think the president might even shock Donald Trump. And that's not something easy to do. I think he might even have to take a moment of pause and just take it all in, because what he's going to see on the ground at Pacific Palisades is awful. It really is awful.
Strong statement, Justin.
Yeah.
And we know that the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire,
right.
they're both in the top 5 most destructive fires in California history.
Right.
And they were ongoing at the same time.
Exact same time. Fires still burning there. Both of those fires are still not fully contained. And we're already talking about disaster dollar amounts that, I mean, 100 billion rather, 150 billion. I mean, there are some numbers that are being thrown around. How do you pay for that? It would bankrupt the entire insurance system. I mean, so how do you pay for it?
Yeah.
So
Lots of questions.
lots of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks so much, Justin. Indeed, we'll continue to follow President Trump, of course, there in North Carolina, and as he heads to California a bit later on today. In Southern Cal, the end of elevated fire conditions is finally in sight for San Diego, but firefighters still not able to let their guard down.
Dave Summers from KNS